All right, welcome everybody. Can we please have a moment of silence for the alcoholic who still suffers, followed by the serenity prayer. Prayer. God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
We ask you to please take a moment now to silence your cell phones out of respect to your fellows. And we'll pass the basket in honor of our seventh tradition, which states every AA group ought to be self-supporting, declining outside contributions. $15 will go towards rent of this meeting space. The rest will go to District 17. The AA preamble. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of people who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and to help others to recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and to help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. Welcome to the Racine Area Archives speaker meeting. Consistent with Alcoholics Anonymous General Service Archives mission, our purpose is to document permanently the work of Alcoholics Anonymous, to make the history of the organization accessible to AA members and other researchers, and to provide a context for understanding AA's progression, principles, and traditions. We'll meet here at the Grove Club at the last Sunday of every month. The first half of the meeting will be a question and answer period followed by a break. After the break, our speaker will resume with sharing their experience, strength, and hope pertaining to a chosen page from the Big Book. This meeting will be recorded and stored at the Racine Area Central Office. A digital copy will be sent to Area 75 Archives. You may contact your District 17 Archives chair to arrange access to the recordings. Not to single anyone out, but to simply welcome you. Is there anyone here with less than 30 days of sobriety? Okay. Is there anyone here with more than 15 years of sobriety? Please raise your hand and welcome. All right, thank you. Our speakers selected for this meeting are old-timers. An old-timer is any member who has been consistently sober for a significant period of time. The definition of significant is open to interpretation and varies widely. For the purpose of this meeting, an old-timer is considered anyone with 20 years or more sobriety. The old-timers interviews serve as a representation of the significant impact that long-term sobriety can have on our AA community. Without further ado, I now introduce our speaker, Dave. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Mike.
This is the part where we ask you some questions. I did not come up with these questions. I'm just...
It's good because I probably don't remember most of what you're going to ask me.
That's all right. We're gonna try to make this as fun and painless as possible.
Yay.
What is your sobriety date, Dave?
January 2nd, 1982.
Awesome. Congratulations. And who was the U.S. president when you joined Alcoholics Anonymous?
Dave looked this up for me right before we came in because I couldn't remember. It was Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
And Gerald Ford.
And Gerald Ford.
Yeah.
All right.
That one I did remember.
Sweet. When and where was your first contact with AA?
Well, that's kind of weird. My mother, actually, my mom had been in AA for, I want to say, 10 or 12 years when I first came here in 1979. And am I supposed to like go into a story or something?
Yes. Yeah, tell a story.
People like stories.
People like stories. Well, my mom got me into treatment basically because when I went to court for the however many time, the judge gave me an option. He gave me either go to treatment or go to prison. And that idea really didn't appeal to me all that much. So somehow, some way, my mother talked to the judge. To this day, well, she passed away back in January, but she never had told me what she said to the judge, because I asked her a bunch of times, but she just wouldn't tell me, to get him to give me that option, because apparently he wasn't going to give me that option originally. Originally, he was just going to send me to prison and let me do my time and then get out and probably go back to drinking and doing drugs. So that was, well, I guess I really didn't answer the question. My first contact would be through my mother, but I was very young because we used to go to, I don't know if anybody here knows Clarence that used to do the Kenosha Alano Club. We used to, when I was a kid, we would go to his house and go swimming in his pool, and of course he was a crabby old man and he'd yell at us and tell us not to pee in the pool. So I'd pee in it on purpose because, never could follow directions very well. So I mean, I've been around AA as far back as I can remember. That's the best I got there.
All right. Can you describe what Alcoholics Anonymous was like back when they compared? What? Can you describe what Alcoholics Anonymous was like back then compared to today?
I was thinking about this because in my mind tells me that it's way different today than it used to be back then. And I don't know that it really is. I think that back then there wasn't as many book studies, but like there was a Wednesday night meeting at the Alano Club that I would go to a lot, and somebody would read out of the big book and we'd talk, the whole group would go around and talk about it. And I know it's not really a study, but it's kind of similar in my mind. I think that back then it was a little, at least for me, it was a little wilder. There wasn't really like a lot of rules, and if there was, we didn't follow them. And I don't know that it is or isn't that way today, but it doesn't seem like it to me. Of course, now keep in mind I'm like old now, so I don't look at things the way I used to look at it when I was young. You know what I mean? I think that now there's a way lot more big book studies, and I think that recovery today, it seems like to me that it's more focused on actually working the program. In my world back then, I didn't work the program. You know what I mean? I didn't drink, and I would try to work step 1, 2, 3, and 13 usually. That was my deal back then. I mean, that's just the truth. And today I try to actually like practice these principles in my life, and I try to and I don't work 13 at all, and I and I do like 1 through 12, and I take in inventories, which I didn't do back then, and I think that's some of the biggest differences, is that I think it's worked harder. It seems like to me it's worked harder today than it was back then. It was more play back then. I don't know.
All right.
That's what I got for that, man.
All right. Moving right along. What were you like as a newcomer, and how do you think others would describe you?
Wait, what?
I know some stories, but we'll keep it about you.
Let's see. What was the first part of that?
What were you like as a newcomer?
I was belligerent as hell.
All right, thanks for your honesty.
Yeah, I hated everybody. I didn't want to be there. And I remember, a lot of you guys remember Keith K? I remember one morning, because honestly back then, I pretty much lived at the Alano Club in Kenosha, because back then it was open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I knew that if I left that place, I was going to drink, and I didn't want to drink. And I remember, like, right before I went out and got drunk, because I came here in 1979 by the order of the judge. I stayed for just shy of 2 years, and then I decided it was time to get drunk. And I remember almost 2 years into it, going up to Keith one morning, real early in the morning. He was behind the bar at the Alano Club, and I said, "Hey." He's like, "What?" I said, "How come nobody down here talks to me?" He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "The book says," because I would go home and read the book at night, right? Because I was living alone, and couldn't sleep, and I would read the book. And I said, "The book says you guys are supposed to talk to me. How come nobody down here talks to me?" And he started laughing, and I'm like, I thought, don't laugh at me, man. There's a good possibility I'll sock you, And he said, "Are you kidding?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, are you kidding?" And he's like, "Dude, you're like a ticking time bomb. Nobody wants to set you off." And everybody's afraid to, because I would sit in the corner with my paper, and I would bury myself behind that. And honestly, I mean, I didn't talk to anybody either, other than there was a couple people, but for the most part, I kept to myself. I think that I was very hard to get along with. I was very judgmental. I was very selfish and self-centered. I was very much, the world owed me. I didn't know what it owed me, but I know it owed me. I had a lot of anger, like to the point of rage, which is why a lot of people didn't talk to me, What's the second part?
Well, how do you think others would describe you when you were a newcomer?
The best one I ever heard was, "You're like an animal." And they told me I lived like an animal, like I was a caged animal. And I didn't understand it, because the way I lived was normal to me. You know what I mean? I don't know if you guys ever felt that way while you were living in your disease, but I did. The chaos and even into early recovery, I didn't stop doing a lot of the things that I did while I was drinking. You know what I mean? I was a thief, and I was a liar, and a cheat, and I did all that shit sober, So I don't think people knew what to think, to be honest with you, because I was really unpredictable. I mean, one day I'd be fine, and the next I'd be just madder than hell for no reason, or depressed. I don't know about you guys, but that's depression's part of my story. I don't know. We could ask a few people. There's some here that were there then. I mean, that might be exciting.
It might.
What do you think, Tim? Come on, man. Come on. Oh, come on.
There you go.
I like interactive meetings, man. We're gonna make this interactive. All right.
Who was your first sponsor, and how did you end up with them?
I was thinking about this earlier today, actually. His name was Bob Martin. He ran a bunch of group homes here in Racine. There used to be women's and men's group homes. My mother worked for him, and he when I got sent to treatment, I had to come to Racine. I lived in Kenosha, but I had to come to Racine because there was a gentleman that ran around town saying that he had a bullet with my name on it, and apparently that was enough that they didn't want me to go to treatment in Kenosha. So when I came here, I got introduced to Bob, and he helped me through the first, I want to say, year of my recovery. Now, the part of that I don't know if you knew about or not, I didn't drink, but I did a lot of drugs that first year. The second year, I didn't do any drugs, I didn't drink. Well, until I drank, you know. But I met him through the A Center, which is no longer in existence. And I used to come to this building to go to meetings. They'd bring us on the little short bus. I always felt like I should lick the windows or something, you know. Though I'm probably not supposed to say that, huh? That's probably not politically correct. But they used to drive us here for meetings, and we'd come in and, you know, I'd sit here and go outside and smoke cigarettes and look around at the girls and try to figure out how I could get high or get drunk, you know. Because, I mean, I got high while I was in treatment, you know.
We are being recorded, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
Who are the alcoholics prominent in your early sobriety?
Well, my ma, there was Timmy V, Kathy P, John M, a.k.a. Torch. There was a bunch of, the Outcast Motorcycle Club was they were, well, it was actually before it was even a club, to be honest with you. They kind of took me by the hand and said, hey, come hang out with us, because you like what we like, and, you know, we're as close to your age as anybody down here. Because when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was the young people. There really was no young people in recovery. I was 17 years old. You know, and there was nothing to do other than go to meetings, you know, and so those people in particular, Kathy in particular, would pick me up, take me to meetings. Torch would pick me up, take me to meetings. He would come and check on me after I got drunk, you know. I was talking about this the other day. After I got drunk, my whole apartment was trashed. There was no windows. There was no, like, all the furniture was trashed. My dog ran away because the dog couldn't stand being around me. You know, my old lady left. I mean, it was just a mess. I had like this piece of plywood on the door that almost covered the window that I busted out. And I remember hearing, and I'm hungover, you know, and I open the door and here's Torch. And I'm thinking, oh God, what? I don't want to see him, right? He's like, so you ready yet? I'm like, no. He's like, all right, turn around, walk away. And I thought, well, wait a minute. That's all you're going to put into it? Come on, man. What's the deal? You know? But he walked away, and when I was ready, he was there, you know? Timmy was instrumental. And he would give me rides and to young people's meetings here in Racine. I believe it was a church right off Main Street. There used to be a young people's meeting there many, many, many years ago. We would go to that meeting, and we would go a lot of places, man. You know, and that kind of helped me as far as recovery, because that at least made it somewhat fun. You know what I mean? Because like I said, I was the young people. There were no others. You know, and the stuff I like to do, my definition of fun versus most people's is way different. So you know, it's like at least they had the same definition of mine, you know, or mine is theirs, however you want to put it. I don't know. That's what I got for that.
All right. Can you think of any AA catchphrases from back then that you don't hear anymore, or don't hear as often today? And What did they mean to you?
God, I hated them.
Okay.
I hated those stupid cliches. KISS, keep it simple, stupid. I'm thinking, first of all, don't call me stupid. Second of all, why? That's no fun. You know, there was, God, what were some, live and let live. And I thought, okay, as long as they don't piss me off, then we'll live and let live. They piss me off, we got a whole different problem. What's some of the other ones? Came to, and came to believe. Steps 1, 2, and 3. You know, I was thinking about that earlier today for some reason. Now that one I kind of liked, but now that, keep in mind, that's from a 63-year-old headset looking back versus a 17-year-old headset looking forward. Back then I thought, what the hell does that even mean? You know, I didn't know. You know, that's all the ones I can think of. It always makes me think of Jumpin' Jimmy Hodges. Do you guys remember Jumpin' Jimmy Hodges? Anybody? Yeah. He had all that stuff, and he had like songs he would like sing to it and stuff, and he'd be jumping all over the place. I kind of loved listening to him actually, because he kind of made those that I thought were stupid sound fun. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. Yeah, Jumpin' Jimmy Hodges. Woof.
Did you get involved in service early on? And if so, what did you do?
I did a little bit. I ran some meetings, like the chairperson or whatever. I was a GSR for, I think it was that Wednesday night meeting at the Allen Oak Club, if I remember correctly. Did some 12-step work. Some of it, not necessarily by my choice. I remember, man, I was real early in recovery. And anybody here remember Bill Daniels, Bill and Linda from the Allen Oak Club in Kenosha? He's dead, so I see Dave remembers everybody. Yeah. He called me one night like midnight, and I was sober like not very long. And he's like, hey man, we gotta go do a 12-step call. Because back then, you know, you would actually go and do 12-step calls. You wouldn't, you know. And I said, well, where are we going? He said, we're going to a bar. And I'm like, what do you mean we're going to a bar to do a 12-step call? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right. So we ended up going and doing a 12-step call in a bar. And then there was another one, man. This guy tripped me out every year. Christmas Eve every year. Back then, the Allen Oak Club, when the phone would ring, you'd have to answer it. And if it was a 12-step call or you'd send somebody or whatever, every year for like 4 years, this dude would call the Kenosha Allen Oak Club on Christmas Eve. Wanted somebody to come out and do a 12-step call. So me and a couple guys would get in the car and we'd go to this guy's house. And he lived in this upscale neighborhood, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, man, you're really inviting us into this neighborhood, huh? I'd be careful if I were you. I ain't sober that long. So we would go and sit with him, and we'd talk AA for a couple hours, and he'd give us cookies and candy and cakes and Christmas shit. And, you know, and I'd be like, why are we here? Because the dude don't want to quit drinking. He's like, no, I'm just lonely. My wife's out of town. So every year we'd just go visit with this dude and do a 12-step call and do some Christmas candy and stuff like that and visit with him, and he'd be good and we'd be good. But I never did see him at an AA meeting.
What kind of events or sober social activities were there when you got sober? And tell us about what those were like.
Oh, God. They were lame. They were just so lame. Well, not all of them. I shouldn't say that. There were some that were kind of fun. There was a lot of dances, much like now. You know, there was Halloween parties and all that type of stuff. Oh man, I just drew a blank. some of it was just boring as hell. I got to tell you. Most of the time, I mean, I don't know if I should say this or not. It's the truth. Should I tell the truth? I mean, most of the time, honestly, the only reason I went there was to pick up a girl. You know, I didn't care nothing about the stupid dances. But later on, you know, when I was hanging out with the outcasts, then it kind of became a little different because we would go places to dances to people that I didn't know, which was really good because that way when I did find the girl, I didn't have to see her ever again, which was, I don't mean that the way that sounded. Wow, that sounded really, really bad. That was not the way I meant that. Well, maybe it was the way I meant it, I don't know. But it made it more fun because we were traveling around and doing stuff and going to like Akron, which I had never been to. I thought that was really cool. You know, going to like bigger functions that there was people from all over the country at, you know what I mean? And that was just, to me, that was kind of cool because I got to see how AA worked in other parts of the country. A lot of the activities for me, honestly, were riding my bike, you know, 2 meetings, whatever. I mean, there was a 2-year period I didn't have a car. You know, I'd ride to meetings, snow on the ground, you know, my mask, and they could see like this much of me coming down the road with my feet on the ground. Because, you know, back then it was a different time and I was poor. Not that I ain't poor now, but, you know, at least not that poor I can buy a car. A lot of conventions. We did pig roasts. That was pretty fun. I think the funnest part of that was not knowing how many people were actually going to show up. And then all these people would show up and we'd have to scramble around to try to make sure everybody got food and so on and so forth. That was always fun. That was like hell week. It was terrible, but it was fun. I got introduced to a lot of stuff that I don't know that if I wasn't in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, hanging around with the people that I was hanging around with, that I would have gotten introduced to, you know. And I think that's, for me, that made my recovery tolerable, if that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. What was your first home group, and why did you decide to make that group your home?
Ooh. God, I don't know. Monday, 8:30, Kenosha Alano Club. Was it 8:30 or 8 o'clock? I think it was 8:30. Because I made that my home group because I felt as though I got the most out of that meeting, out of all the meetings that I went to. And honestly, I mean, I went to meetings every day, you know, and I sometimes 2 a day. Back then, like I said, I lived in the Kenosha Alano Club. I mean, I was afraid to leave it, you know, for fear that I'd get drunk, you know, and because I knew me well enough to know that it wouldn't have took much, you know, versus, you know, today, I don't know what it would take, you know what I mean, to put me in a position to where I'd be willing to give up my recovery. You know, I don't know if there is anything. I don't know that, and I don't know that I learned that through that meeting, but obviously I learned something that helped me to stay here for all these years, you know.
All right.
Uh-oh, he's looking for specifics.
You know?
Trying to set me up is what he's doing.
I guess we're going to take a break.
Take a break?
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, welcome back. Here's Dave. He's going to read a page from the big book or a famous quote or something, and share his experience, strength, and hope. Thanks.
No microphone? I think there is. Can you hear me? All right. I'm Dave. I'm an alcoholic. I didn't pick a page out of the big book because, like I said earlier, I don't follow rules real well. So what I mentioned earlier about came to, and came to believe, for some reason that's what was sticking in my head today as I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight. So what that is to me is that steps one, 2, and 3. You know, I came to Alcoholics Anonymous pretty much a wreck. You know, there was a lot of chaos. My life was very unmanageable, although I didn't think so. I don't know how many of you guys didn't think your lives were unmanageable when you got here, but I know I didn't. You know, to me, it was normal to have doctors, judges, lawyers, psychiatrists, sheriffs, city police. The only ones that didn't run my life were the state patrol. And yet, oddly enough, you know, I did not think that my life was out of control. I did not think that my drinking was any different than anybody else. I did not, you know, because the people I hung out with drank the same as I did. You know, well, that's probably a lie. Some of them drank the way I did, and fortunately enough for me, I got to help some of them get sober, and that was really cool. You know, but it says that we admitted we, and Mike Kay pointed that out to me one time, because when I got here, it was I admitted I. It wasn't we admitted we. I didn't want any part of we. You know what I mean? I just wanted to not drink and not go to jail anymore. And so I came here begrudgingly. I came here against my will. I came here because I was ordered to be here, like I said earlier. You know, I hung out for a long time, and it took me a long, long time to come to, I guess, for lack of a better way of saying it. You know, I hid for as long as I could from doing these steps, from putting this into practice in my life, from changing my life. You know, when I came here, people told me that I had to change my playgrounds, my playmates. You know, and I had mentioned earlier that after 2 years I got drunk. A lot of that was because I didn't do any of that. You know, I would go to an AA meeting so that I could appease a judge. I'd go to the bar and hang out with my friends, and inevitably, eventually, I got drunk. When I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous, I think I came to a little bit, but nowhere near what I needed to. I think that, you know, I came back to AA because I knew that my life was thoroughly out of control. Because like I said earlier, you know, I had like a piece of plywood over the window on my door and no windows in my house. And, you know, that to me wasn't normal. But, well, to me it actually was kind of normal. But, so you know, when I came back, and I say this a lot, I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to drink come hell or high water. Didn't matter what happened in my life. Didn't matter what happened around me. Didn't matter what happened. Just didn't matter. I wasn't going to drink. And I got to tell you guys, over the course of my career in Alcoholics Anonymous, and I can say career because it's over 30 years, I should be able to retire. Don't you guys think? I mean, you know, I'm thinking 30's good, 30 and out, right? Over the course of my career in Alcoholics Anonymous, I've had, life has just kicked me in the balls time and time again. Oh, I probably shouldn't have said balls, huh? Sorry, guys. You know, it took me like 17 years after I came back the second time to actually come to. And I had reached a point in recovery where I couldn't live sober and I couldn't live drunk. And the only thing I could think about on a daily basis was blowing my brains out because I couldn't live sober and I couldn't live drunk. In other words, I couldn't stay in AA and not work the steps and change my life and change my playgrounds and playmates and do all the shit that they told me to do that I didn't want to do, right? I didn't want to do any of this shit. I just didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want to drink, right? It took me 17 years of fighting, which that's why it took me 17 years, because I got a lot of fight, barely, not near as much anymore as now that I'm a little older, but I had a lot of fight back then. And I had mentioned Torch earlier. He was one of my sponsors for a long time. And we didn't do a lot of AA. We had a hell of a lot of fun, but we didn't do a lot of AA. Oh crap. This getting old stuff sucks, man. Your mind just goes blank for no reason. He had joined a group on Tuesday nights, a men's meeting. Him and my buddy Jimmy over here, which I don't know if I'm supposed to say. Is that all right, Jimmy? All right, cool. Like I said, I like interactive. They had chased me for, God, I don't know, a couple years to go to this meeting because they knew that I was not going to make it otherwise, right? At 17 years in recovery, they knew that if I didn't do something different, that I was either going to die or I was going to get drunk. I mean, they could see that from the outside. I'm sure there was other people as well, but those are the two that stand out in my mind. And I remember going to that first meeting, and I sat in that meeting begrudgingly, of course, because that's my nature. And I remember Daryl Manchester. A lot of you guys know Daryl, right? I remember at the end of that meeting, he looked at me and he said, because I'm sure I sat in a meeting with my jaws clenched and my fists clenched and pissed off and hated being there. And at the end of that meeting, Daryl looked at me and he said, "Hey, man, you didn't say anything. Do you got anything you want to say?" And I said, "Yeah." And like, no pressure, right? I said, "You got 1 year to make me feel better. And if I don't feel better, I'm done, man. I'm done. Because I can't do this anymore." He told me later on, he said, "Hey, thanks for putting the pressure on, man." I was like, "Hey, it worked. You made me feel better, so what the hell?" Then through that meeting, through some pretty heavy-duty four-step work, looking at the bits and pieces of Dave that I didn't want to look at, right, that I didn't want to change, that I didn't want to give up. I didn't want to surrender them. In doing that, oddly enough, in letting go of that stuff, I got something else in return, right? I got to be able to work this program, and I got to be able to create a relationship with a higher power, came to believe, that I didn't have prior to that. I got to tell you, up until that point, I didn't like God. I was pretty pissed at him, and every time somebody mentioned God, I'd say, "Yeah." When I get there, that son of a bitch and me going to have a conversation because I'm pissed. And, of course, people would just look at me like I'm crazy because, who really talks about God like that, right? Me, I'm like, fuck them. I got to build a relationship with what I believe in as a higher power that has seen me through in the last 10 years or so. I hate microphones. I really do. They always make me cry every single time. A higher power and AA and people around me calling me to check on me and to bring me meals, to
do all kinds of shit, and then I get to go to bed at night and I get to pray. Sometimes on my knees, man, I pray and say, hey, God, thanks, man, just for giving me another day. Thanks for giving me another opportunity to be able to help another suffering alcoholic that might be going through the same shit that I'm going through, right? And in the last 10 years, man, I've gone through a whole lot of shit, I got to tell you, which is why I was talking earlier about what would knock me off the pedestal, what would knock me off the beam, right? What is the one thing that would take me out of Alcoholics Anonymous? I don't know that there is a thing, right? With the exception of me making a decision based on self that would later place me in a position to be harmed, right? It says that in the big book, and I believe that with all my heart. I truly do. I believe that I'm the only one that can take me out of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm the only one that can make that decision to say, fuck this, I'm getting drunk because I just can't take anymore, right? I know that, when Daryl died, and a bunch of us showed up at Jimmy's house, man, I was looking around that room and I'm thinking to myself, this is pretty cool, right? I mean, I don't know how many people that I drank with or did drugs with that would have showed up because they were worried about an individual or several individuals that were struggling. You know what I mean? I don't know about you guys, people I drank with and got high with, they didn't give a shit about my struggles. You know what I mean? What they cared about was if I could buy another round. You know, I think that coming to believe, for me, helped me to form a relationship with my father, who at one point I had threatened to put a bullet in his ass. And I got to hold his hand while he died. And I got to be a good son, right? And I got to call people, right? I called from Ohio and said, hey, man, I don't know how to do this. What do I do? And they said, well, why would you know how to do this? You've never had to before, right? And in turn, I got to hold my mother's hand while she died, right? And my baby sister while she died, right? And I got to be a good son, and I got to be a good brother, and I got to be a lot of things that I wasn't throughout the course of my life, right? I had no idea how to do any of that shit. I didn't know how to be a good brother. I didn't know how to be a good son, right? And I got to do all that. And I got to hold my mother's hand, who got me in this program in the first place, right? And that was pretty cool. I mean, I was like, I mean, don't get me wrong, man. It comes with its sadnesses and all that. But, when I think about that situation in particular, I'm grateful that she did what she did for me, right? Because otherwise, I don't know that I'd be standing up here tonight. I'd probably be dead, most likely, or worse yet, I'd be sitting on the same bar stool I sat on 40 some odd years ago, talking the same bullshit, doing the same bullshit over and over and over again. That would be like a miserable ending to a miserable life. I think that, it says somewhere in the book, God does for us what we can't do for ourselves. And I believe that, right? I believe that God has done for me many things that I could not do for myself. And I tried. I mean, believe me, I tried. Like I said, I got a lot of fight, right? Even today, sometimes, depending on the subject, right? I know that in coming to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. When I first got here, that step used to drive me crazy because it implied I was insane, right? That made me nuts because I thought, what do you mean I'm insane? My life is great. And they would go, yeah, well, then why are you here? Right? Why people don't wake up and go, I think I'll go to Alcoholics Anonymous today, right? And I don't know that I've been completely restored to sanity, but I know it's been it's a lot better than it was when I first got here. Because when I first got here, I got to tell you, man, I was a nutbag. you know, and I'm okay with that today. You know, I was okay with that then, quite honestly. But I know that, you know, I was reading this little thing around the wall here, right? And it talks about experiences, and it talks about fellowships growing up around us, and it talks about, and I think back to 1982 when I first came here. Well, 79 when I first came here is truth, but I think about all the people, man, and I think about the all the people that have taken time out of their lives to help me to get to where I am today, right? When I got here, I don't know about you guys, but I didn't feel like I deserved any of that, right? I was not that guy. I was not a good person. And all the people that I got to help, right? All the people that I've got to share my story with over the years. And I've spoke in a lot of places. You know, one of the ones that I really had to think about a lot is when I was sober, not very long, and somebody wanted me to speak in front of like 300 people in Chicago. And I'm like, yeah, you didn't tell me this, man. This sucks. I don't like this at all. But it turned out all right. But I think one of the coolest things about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous for me is to watch people get sober and watch their lives change and watch them grow and prosper and watch how God intervenes in their lives, right? And to watch how everything in their world changes and they don't even see it until all of a sudden they see it and they go, huh, that's the weirdest shit I ever seen. Right? I did not expect any of this. You know, when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't expect my life to be what it is. I did not expect to be able to be a good son. I did not expect to right wrongs that I created. I did not expect to be a good brother to my sisters that I truly was not a good brother to. You know, I get to it's interesting to me how people accept you into their lives when they don't even really know you. You know what I mean? I was thinking about my family, I guess. Wasn't my family... How I get to be a part of a family that wasn't even my family, if that makes sense, right? And I get to take care of my in-laws that aren't even really my in-laws, right? And I get to be a good human being, which I wasn't for a long time in sitting around these tables, right? I was not a good human being. Today, as a result of came to believe, I get to believe that I can be an okay human being, right? And I get to give more than I take, which when I got here, I took way more than I gave, right? And I get to hold people's hands when they're in trouble, right? When their world is rocking. I get to sometimes be a dick, right? Because sometimes I'm just a dick. That's the way it is. But then I get to go back and make amends, which I hate a lot. So I try really hard not to be a dick because I hate making amends. And I've gotten to do that too, right? I've gotten to go back and right a bunch of wrongs that I did throughout my time in recovery. I still have some to do. I'm sure I always will, you know. But I've gotten the opportunity to be able to do that, and I think in doing that, I get a freedom from the bondage of self, man, right? And I don't have to be, you know. I remember saying to a guy named Kevin one time that I felt like I was in a prison in my own mind, And he said, yeah, but you're the one that's got the key, dumbass. I'm like, oh, well, that was easy, right? But he was right. You know, I had the key, and that was working these steps in my life, and working with other people and going to meetings. And right now, I'm going to more meetings that I've gone to in a long time. You know, I'm got a lot of free time on my hands, you know, that I didn't have a while ago. And I don't know that I have a whole lot more to share with you guys. What I know is that I know that if you work it, it works. And if you don't, you'll probably drink or commit suicide. I've known many over the years that did, right? And I got to tell you, man, that's one of the most heartbreaking things to see in Alcoholics Anonymous, is to see somebody come in here and their life starts to change and they decide to drink and they blow their fucking brains out, right? Because there ain't no coming back from that, right? It's a permanent solution to a temporary problem, you know, and I don't know that anybody that's ever struggled with that mentality, I know I have, it can be a real son of a bitch, right? It can get pretty intense at times. You know, I know that it's nothing that this program can't overcome, can't help me with. That I know. Although the program's not helped me with quitting smoking, I got to tell you, I've tried that. It didn't work, at least not yet. I know that, you know, there's a lot of good people in these rooms, man. And there's a lot of good people that will take their time to go out of their way to help you when you're hurting, right? And I don't know about you guys, but life keeps happening whether I'm sober or not, you know, and it's sometimes you hurt, right? Other times you're happier than shit. Laugh your ass off, have a great time, you know. So, I guess that's about all I got. Thanks.